Embattled edtech major BYJU'S problems are unending at the moment. The Chinese electronics manufacturer Oppo Mobiles has approached the Bengaluru bench of National Company Law Tribunal for an insolvency plea against the company. The NCLT has admitted the case and is scheduled to hear it on 28th of May. BYJU'S has been given 2 weeks to respond to the notice. Now, this adds to BYJU'S existing financial burdens, including legal battles and debt issues. The plea shows mounting dues that BYJU'S owes to various growing list of entities. Other cases against the company are its 1.2 billion term loan B to lenders, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, the BCCI plea. BYJU'S is also fighting oppression and mismanagement plea filed by a group of 4 investors over $200 million it raised via rights issue. So another hurdle there for BYJU'S that it will have to cross. Kartik, Malhotra here with me in the studio. Kartik, hi. BYJU'S, the cases against BYJU'S, of course, unending, and this comes as a latest jolt.
I think you're right. What you mentioned, this is yet another mountain that BYJU'S has to tide over, and it has thus far unsuccessfully so been fighting all these battles on multiple fronts, and all the way from facing bankruptcy lawsuits in the US in a Delaware court to the term loan B, which there is still no method in the madness on how BYJU'S will ever be able to repay that loan, to more domestic human level problems of not being able to pay salaries. So now in a latest, you also have reports emerging that BYJU'S is now linking the sales targets to a weekly payout mechanism, which means that all those who are responsible for this exam season, the month of May, then whatever sales they will be able to garner in the month of May, the employees who have been able to garner those sales are going to now get a weekly payout instead of a monthly payout or a yearly payout as the case was earlier. Now, Oppo filing for another bankruptcy lawsuit in NCLT against BYJU'S is obviously something which, if nothing else, is going to occupy management time, is going to occupy management bandwidth. And at a time like this, where there are so many battlefronts already open, one more is not going to do any good to BYJU'S.
And given that there are at least 4 pleas admitted in NCLT with respect to insolvency and bankruptcy for BYJU'S, it does look like that could also happen in the near future. If all these pleas are entertained, which they have been admitted to the court, and if they materialize going forward, are we looking at IBC starting for BYJU'S?
I mean, one cannot obviously rule that out, Shweta. It's very important, I think, for the courts to ask for right now, and I'm sure they would be asking for it, that what is your financial runway, what is the cash situation in your books? Because if you don't have the money to pay your salaries, you obviously don't have money to pay your creditors.
Right.
And at a time when investors are also coming in, lock, stock and barrel against the company over its new rights issue, the valuation of $200 million as opposed to $22 billion once upon a time, all of this put together not auguring well for the company. So if it doesn't have the cash, it doesn't have the cash. At some point, the courts will have to decide on either letting the company go bankrupt or find somebody to come and take over, and that could be a hostile one. But that will also find, very few takers at this moment, because we haven't seen the edtech industry grow ever since the pandemic pretty much receded. So, who will want to now enter an edtech space or consolidate within the edtech space and take on a company which has such debts and such bad reputation in the market today?
Absolutely. It's getting difficult for BYJU'S by the day. Oppo, one of its investors, has now taken BYJU'S to court in Bengaluru.